Alright guys, let's come to our mat and we're going to lay down nice and flat with bent knees, and our feet are going to be about sits bones distance apart. We want to have a nice little gap between the small of the back. We want to check in with the rib cage, make sure that the rib cage isn't flared, that we can draw the chest, the ribs down and in, which means kind of this nice top band of the shoulders not going to be pressing down against the floor, against the mat. Otherwise, if we try to put the shoulders down and back, we get a lot of upper back extension. It kind of activates and engages those lats, and then we have a hard time engaging this upper half of the abdominals. So we'll maybe roll the shoulders forward a little bit, seat the rib cage and the chest down and in. And we're going to reach our arms nice and long. We're going to start with our pelvic tilt. And on that exhale, we're going to pull up from the pubic bone, draw up through the pelvic floor, tilt the hips back as we imprint and draw navel to spine, finding that nice hollow position as you pull the ribs down and in. And then you curl and you articulate and you roll back towards the tailbone. As you're rolling towards the tailbone, again, we're keeping an eye on the rib cage to make sure it doesn't pop up out of position. And we'll exhale and tilt the hips. Finding that nice hollowing and then curling through. Let's do 2 more pelvic tilts. And on that exhale, we're drawing the abdominals in, we're pulling up. And there's no movement through the upper body. We're only moving the hips and the low back. We'll bring our right leg to tabletop position and then bring both arms up towards the ceiling. Hands are reaching for the ceiling as we press the shoulder blades flat against the mat. And on the inhale, that right leg is going to hinge at the hip to lower. Toe tap the mat and lift. Nice smooth movement of the leg and the hip. Nice and slow. We'll hold that right leg in tabletop, and now as the foot lowers to the mat, the arms are going to glide overhead. So foot's lowering to the mat, keeping that knee bend as the arms glide overhead, and then slow to bring it forward. Nice and smooth. Two more, pulling the ribs in, drawing the abdominals to the back, keeping the back engaged to support the spine, and we'll lower that right leg back to the mat. Bringing the left leg up to tabletop, keeping that bend at the knee, we'll inhale to hinge at the hip. Toe tap the mat. Nice and smooth, glide the leg in the hip, drawing the ribs down and in. And we'll pause at tabletop. Draw the chest down, the rib cage in, we're bracing through the core, and on the inhale, arms and that left leg move away from your center line, down towards the mat, and then back to center on the exhale. Last 2. And we'll rest that left foot back to the floor. Arms move out to a T position, reaching out nice and long to each side. We'll bring our legs to tabletop. Draw the core into the back, anchor the pockets and the shoulder blades to the floor, and we'll work our leg changes. Alternating the legs. Nice smooth movement of the leg in the hip, side to side, that nice simultaneous movement. Nice and slow. And we'll go for 3 more each side. Hugging the knees in towards the chest will decompress the back. Lifting the tailbone and the hips up off the mat as you curl the knees to the chest and round the spine. Slide those shoulders down the back to keep the neck long and the shoulders out of that shrugged position. And we'll reset, bringing the feet back to the mat in line with the sit bones, that nice parallel position, and we'll interlace our fingers. Bring our hands back behind the head to support the head and the neck, pulling the rib cage in. And we anchor towards the tailbone, so we have that little gap at the small of the back. Into our chest lift, we exhale to fold, bringing the shoulders up off of the mat. On that exhale, we pause for a breath at the top, and then keeping the ribs knitted in, we exhale to reset the shoulder blades and the head back to the floor. Exhale, nice deep fold across the brow line at the mid ribs as the head, neck, and chest lift. Nice and smooth. Slow fold across the brow line just below the pecs to draw the shoulders up and off of the mat as high as you can. So we engage the upper and middle abdominals to help us with that chest lift. Lower abs are keeping and helping to keep the hips level, and the low back in neutral along with the middle abdominals. And we fold and lift, holding that chest lift, finding that nice deep fold, gliding the shoulders, the underarms down the back, down the side of the ribs. We'll bring our legs to tabletop position. Right leg hinges at the hip, we toe tap the mat. Nice and smooth glide of the leg in the hip. And then right leg pauses in tabletop. Left leg, we hinge and lift. Nice smooth movement at the hip. And we pause at tabletop, pull the legs, inner thighs together. On that next exhale, we arc back to the mat, drop the shoulders, the head to the floor, and exhale, fold and lift. Pause for that breath, and slow to reset. Nice deep fold at the mid ribs, let the head fall back into the hands. Try not to pull the head and the neck forward. And last two. Dropping back to the mat, we bring our knees in towards the chest. Let's reach for the feet, reach for the toes. We'll draw the knees apart, shoulder width for that happy baby stretch as we rock from hip to hip. If you can't reach the feet, you can grab the back of the knees, Reach for the shins. Or even go arms out to a T as you rock from side to side. Slow to unwind. We'll place the feet back to the mat, and arms are going to come down nice and long by your side. We'll separate the feet and the legs about 6 bones distance apart on the mat. And on the exhale, we're going to bring our legs up to tabletop. And on the inhale, both feet, both legs, we're going to hinge at the hip, try to toe tap the mat. I'm keeping a space between the legs. You can always squeeze through inner thigh, hug the knees together as you hinge at the hip. Being mindful that the rib cage stays locked down and in. The low back keeps that little gap, but then doesn't overextend the lower the feet get towards the floor. One more. And we'll rest the feet to the floor. Fingers once again interlace, bringing the hands back behind the head, supporting the head and the neck. Reset the spine. We fold at the midribs to lift the head, neck, and chest. And we twist the chest and the shoulders over and onto that right shoulder blade, right underarm. And twist back to center. As we shift, we move to the left. And back to center. We're going to glide from side to side. Keeping the hips nice and stable on the floor. The legs are still. Last rotation, over to the left. And we'll come back to center. Hold that chest lift. Walk the feet, the legs together. As the upper body twists to the right, the legs are going to fall to the left. And center. It's a small movement with the legs. I'm keeping both feet in contact with the floor as I work that rotation. And I'm trying to maintain and keep that rotation there at the mid-ribs, just below the bra line. Keeping the shoulder blades pulled up and off of the mat, especially at that center line. One more each side. Coming to the center and slow to reset to the floor. Arms return nice and long by the side. We'll separate the feet so legs are in line with the inside of the hip. We're going to move into our pelvic curl. Arms are reaching long. We're going to plant the feet and then exhale to tilt the hips back. Begin to curl, lifting up off of the mat, off the floor, piece by piece, drawing the rib cage and the abdominals down and in, holding for that breath at the top, and then slow to articulate, curling down, trying not to let the shoulders shrug or glide up towards the neck or the ears as we roll through and roll towards the tailbone. Nice smooth movement up and down the spine, taking your time to feel each piece of the back coming on and off of the mat, and that stretch along the thighs, a little bit around the knees as you send the knees forward towards the toes, creating that movement at the ankle to send the lower leg forward with the knee towards the front of the foot. Scooping and drawing the abdominals up and in, activating the inner thigh a bit at the top to prevent the knees from twisting out. Taking a moment to reset the arms and the shoulders for 2 more pelvic curls. Slow to unwind out of that last bridge. We'll bring our legs to tabletop, keeping a space between the knees. Folding up the head, neck, and chest, we'll lift, bringing the hands to the knees, moving into that single leg stretch. Right leg reaches as hands move to the left leg, and we switch. Finding that nice, straight, long leg. Reaching out straighter and longer, stretching the leg as far out over the mat as you can. One more each side. And we'll tuck the knees in and drop the shoulders, the head back to the floor. Bringing the legs to tabletop position, we'll bring our arms out to a T, palms up. Legs stay together as we twist to the right. Spine twist supine, moving on to that right hip, anchoring the left shoulder blade, and exhale to bring the legs back to center. The legs, the hips, the low back, everything is moving at the same pace. And we're letting the whole side of the leg and the body fall to that side versus leading with the knees. We want to lead with the whole side of the body, the side of the leg, as we twist through the mid-ribs, twisting from side to side, as if you're rolling a ball from pocket to pocket. Last one each side. And we'll rest the feet back to the mat. Arms come long down by your side, or they can rest on your hip bones, on your pelvis. We're going to work some single leg extensions and some single leg circles with the legs. Keeping the left knee bent and the foot on the mat, we'll bring the right leg to tabletop and straighten it up towards the ceiling. And on the inhale, that right leg will lower. And exhale to lift. Allowing that leg to move smoothly in the hip without the back helping too much on that extension and on that flexion. Rib cage drops in, we pull the belly in nice and tight. And we move into down circles. Right leg comes down the center. We rotate the leg and circle out, back up and around. Nice and smooth rotation. Allowing the leg to glide in the hip. There's some pressure in the left foot to help engage the back of that left leg. And we'll bring that right leg to tabletop, and we'll add some knee bends to decompress the knee, and we'll reach the leg forward. Inhale to brace through the abdominals and the back extensors as that right leg glides forward. our next single leg extension, we'll pause at that straight leg. And on the inhale, right leg flows to the right and center. Reach. One more. And we come to center, bring the leg up the center, we circle out at the top for our last of our single leg movements on the right for these up circles. Last two. And we'll rest that right leg to the mat. Draw the left knee towards the chest as you reach that right leg out to stretch through the front of the hip and along the thigh. We'll bring that left knee towards the left shoulder and keep reaching and stretching that right leg longer on the mat. Left leg comes cross body and over to the right, opening and stretching that left hip. And back to center. We'll place our left foot to the mat. Let's bend the right knee. We'll reset the back and the hips. And then left leg is going to come to tabletop, extending that leg up nice and long towards the ceiling. And we inhale to lower the left leg and exhale to lift. Slight pressure in that right foot to engage the back of that right leg allows us to connect deeper to the abdominals as that left leg moves. And we transition to down circle. Left leg comes down the center, rotates and circles out, back up and around. One more down circle. And we'll bend that left knee to tabletop and we'll send the leg forward and draw it back. Those single leg extensions. Nice long lines of the leg, reaching out strong over the mat. And left leg straightens out and it holds. We press into that right foot and the left leg reaches out to the side and back. Extending and lengthening nice and long. Draw the ribs in, pulling the abdominals in nice and tight. And left leg comes up through the center, circles out at the top for up circles. One more. And left leg is long and rest down on the mat. We'll pull the right knee to the chest as you send that left leg out longer on the floor. Drop the rib cage down. Anchor both hips to the floor. And then right knee comes out towards that right shoulder. And right leg crosses the midline, reaches over towards that left shoulder, opening and stretching that right hip. And slow to unwind. We'll bend the knees, place the feet flat to the mat, reset the back, find that alignment with the hips to the rib cage to the shoulders, and arms come overhead, palms up towards the ceiling, and exhale, arms flow forward, we lift, head, neck, and chest, nice high chest lift, and slow to reset. The higher we can bring the chest, the shoulders up off of the mat, the less stress and strain on the neck. giving us that nice flexion, decompressing the lats through the mid-back. We're going to bring legs to tabletop and continuing with that chest lift. Trying to lift the chest as high as we can without taking that lift and that movement into the small of the back. On our next chest lift, we'll hold. Fingers will interlace. We'll bring our hands behind the head, support the head and the neck. Keep that nice deep fold at the mid-ribs. And inhale, legs extend out. And slow as they pull back. Inhale to reach. And exhale back. Nice deep fold at the mid-ribs, keeping that chest lifted high. And 3, 2, and 1. Knees hug back into the chest. We'll round the spine. We'll rest the left foot down. Let's do our figure 4 stretch. We're going to cross our right ankle over that left thigh. Find that space, that tunnel at the small of the back. And then we'll pick the left leg up, reach through, grab hold of that left leg. And twist the right knee, the right leg away from the shoulder. Holding for another breath or 2. We'll unwind and switch sides. Putting that right foot down, we'll cross the left ankle over the right thigh. Bring that right leg up to tabletop. Reach through, grab the right leg. Keep that little gap at the small of the back so we can isolate the stretch in the hip. It changes, and you can test it out. If you flex the back, pull the legs towards you, it changes the position of the stretch. Holding for another breath or 2. We'll slow to unwind. Legs come out nice and straight. Point the toes. And arms glide overhead. And inhale. Arms flow forward. Head, neck, chest lifts. And exhale to curl and roll up. We're rolling forward, rolling out, over, stretching out over the legs. And staying in our C curve, we're going to drop the shoulders, curl and roll back to the mat. Gliding the shoulders down, tilting the hips back, rolling along the spine piece by piece. And arms reach up nice and long overhead. Pull the rib cage down and in. And begin to lift. And exhale to curl. Drawing the abdominals in, keeping that nice C curve as you reach out over the legs. And curling and rolling back, piece by piece, nice and slow. Last roll up, we inhale to bring the arms forward, begin to lift the head and chest, and then exhale to draw the abdominals up and in, and we reach out. Stretching out nice and long. On our next exhale, we curl and restack, sitting up tall. Let's turn on to our left side for some of our side lying leg work today. Starting at a bent knee, we're going to rest the head to the bicep, laying on the left side to start with. Rib cage pulls in. Hand can be on the hip on the waist to help track the alignment of the back. And we'll exhale to lift that right leg up and slow to lower. It's easy to over-relax in this side lying position, so we want to keep that drawing of the abdominals up and in. Ribs are knitted in. We're fully engaging both the abdominals and the back extensors as that right leg moves. And we pause at parallel. Flex at the ankle. We're going to kick the leg forward into flexion and then point the toes and reach back into extension. Your hand here will help to tell you if you're using your back too much, creating any movement in the spine to make it look like that leg has traveled further. Restrict your range of motion if you're putting too much movement into your back. Last one. And we're going to switch. We're going to straighten that bottom leg, bend the right knee, drop it forward over the front of the left, and we're going to extend that left bottom leg out long across the mat. On the exhale, that left leg lifts and lowers. Right shoulder pulls down the back. Ribs are drawing in. We're pulling the belly to the back. You could always pad under that right knee a towel or a roller if this internal rotation for that right leg does not work for you. Last 3. And we'll bend the knees. We're going to stack the legs, bring the heels back towards the sit bones, towards the tailbone, and we'll come up onto our left forearm for a side plank on the knees. You could do this with straight legs, either stacked or crossed, one leg in front of the other. Straight legs is more challenging. Right arm comes up to the ceiling, and on the next exhale, we're going to lift the hips, bring the hips forward and up. Hugging through inner thighs, lengthening that spine nice and long. Holding strong for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hips will drop, we'll rest, and then we'll switch over to the other side. Laying on your right side, bottom right leg is bent at the hip and at the knee for that nice 90-degree bend. Your head's on your bicep. Let's float that left leg out, stretching it nice and long. With left hand at the hip, and we exhale to lift that left leg up and slow to lower. Nice and smooth glide of the leg in the hip. Again, your hand is helping to track your back and your pelvis to make sure you're not getting any additional movement up the chain into the spine. And we'll pause at parallel to the floor. Flex at the ankle, pull the toes back. We kick forward, point the toes, and reach back. Nice and smooth. Keeping the belly drawn in tight, rib cage is knitted in, that left shoulder is coming down away from the neck, away from the ears. One more. And we'll change the leg position. Bottom right leg straightens. Top left leg is bent at the knee. It comes forward and over. Again, you could always pad with a pillow, a towel, or a roller. Let's stretch that right leg out nice and long. And on the exhale, that bottom right leg lifts and lowers. Keeping the knees straight, the legs stretching out long across the mat. And we draw that left shoulder down. Let the collarbone spread wide as you knit the rib cage in, bracing through the abdominals and the back. 3, 2, and 1. We'll bend the knees, stack the legs, bring the heels back in line with the tailbone, with the sit bone, coming up onto that right forearm, gliding the shoulders down and back. That left arm reaches up for the ceiling, nice and strong. And then the hips lift up and through for that side plank. You could always do this with straight legs stacked or top leg crossed over the bottom. And we'll hold for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hips lower to the mat. And we'll flip over face down. Forehead is going to rest on the back of your hands. So bring your hands to the front under your forehead. Legs are going to have some space between them, and they're reaching out nice and long across the mat. Single leg hip extension. We're going to float the legs a little bit off the mat so we can alternate those legs. Inhale, right leg extends and lifts, straight and long, and lowers to that hover position off the floor. Left leg lifts on that next inhale, and exhale to lower. Glide the shoulders down the back, knit the ribs in. Allow that leg to lift without twisting the hips or over pressing on your low back. Pulling the rib cage in, bracing through the abdominals as the legs lift to keep that pressure off the spine. 1 more each side. And we'll rest the feet, rest the legs. Hands come by the chest with the elbows shooting back. Light pressure of the hands to the mat, and on the inhale we're going to lift. Head, neck, and chest. Keeping the belly pressed against the mat, pelvis pressed down against the floor, and then slow to lower. Light contact of the hands to the mat, to the floor. Nice and smooth lift of the upper body. Keeping that tension of the shoulders drawing down the back. As they rise towards the neck and towards the ears, it puts a lot of pressure on the low back, and you lose a lot of engagement in the abdominals. We want to keep those shoulder blades packed down the back. Last 2. And toes will curl under. We're going to peel up and sit back towards the heels, stretching out into that child's pose position, that rest position, reaching the arms out nice and long. And we'll curl up and curl forward. I'm going to walk to the front end of the mat. Staying in quadruped, knees are going to start underneath the hips, hands and wrists, underneath the shoulders and the chest. Pull ribs and abdominals in. Push up strong away from the floor. And that right leg is going to lengthen out and kick up. Nice and strong. Reaching that right leg out. Arms are straight and strong. You've got that tension in the abdominals. 3, 2, 1. And we slide that right knee back. Take a moment to reset. Stretch the spine. Ribs and abs knit in. And then when you're ready, left leg slides back, nice and long. Good extension of the leg out of the hip, and we lift on that inhale. Arms stay straight. Keep yourself squared off to the mat. Trying not to overweight too much either arm. 3, 2, 1. Sliding that knee back and under. We'll sit back once again for that rest position as you walk your hands forward. One more breath. And we'll curl and come forward once again, returning to that quadruped position. Slide the shoulders down the back. We're going to walk out to our center plank. Right leg straightens out, and then the left. You could do this kneeling on the knees. Slight tuck of the tailbone, pull the rib cage, draw the abdominals up and in, push strong away from the floor. We're holding strong here. Focus on your breath. Feel the heels reach down for the floor. That tension through inner thigh. Everything knitting and zipping up your center line. Holding for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Knees bend. Knees go wide. Heels come together. We sit back. Drop the chest down through the thighs. And we'll curl and restack. Let's go into our lunge stretch. Let's open up our hip and we'll drop into that pigeon stretch as well. Right foot comes forward, left knee stays down. Stack the spine, find that nice long line of your back, and then we drive the hips forward. Drop the shoulders down the back, ribs and abs knit in. And then hands come to the mat. Let's walk that right foot across and lay it down on the mat. Nice extension in the spine. I'm going to lift up a bit into a bit of extension through the spine to deepen that stretch at the front of the left hip and at the back of the right hip. And slow to come out. Right leg comes back. We bring our left foot, left leg up and forward. Stack the spine and then drive everything forward. Slide the shoulders down the back, pull the ribs and the abdominals in. Find that balance. And then hands come down, we walk that left foot across, lay the left leg down, and I'm going to push up into that extension. Feeling the stretch at the front of the right hip and deep in that left glute. Holding for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sliding that left leg back. We sit back once again to the heels. And I'm going to lace my right arm under my left, drop that right shoulder to the mat, as well as my right ear looking out under that left arm. And slow to unwind. Right arm reaches out, long overhead, and left arm laces under and through. Roll that shoulder down, drop that left ear to the mat. Looking out underneath that right arm. And slow to unwind. Arms start overhead, and on that next exhale, we're going to curl and restack. Rounding the back, sitting up nice and tall, nice and long. Arms come up overhead, fingers interlace, and we hinge to the right. and center. Extend and lift up and to the left. One more side bend each side. And arms rest. All right, guys. Awesome work today. Thank you so much.